Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into the heart of the Quran today, exploring the second chapter, Al-Baqarah, which translates to the heifer. And we're going deep, really trying to understand the messages within this chapter and how they still resonate with us today.
What's fascinating about Al-Baqarah is that it's the longest chapter in the Quran, and it's full of insights into faith, righteousness, human experience. It's like a guidebook for anyone searching for spiritual truth, but it also has warnings for those who stray from the path.
Okay, so let's unpack this guidebook. One thing that stood out to me was how the chapter starts. It directly addresses those who believe and those who don't. It seems to highlight this fundamental difference right from the beginning. Why start there?
You've hit on something really important. That contrast actually sets the tone for the entire chapter. It establishes a central theme: the consequences of our choices. Believing in the unseen, and this includes the existence of Allah, angels, revelation, it's all emphasized right away. And then prayer, giving to charity, having faith in Allah's messages. These are presented as the paths to a truly fulfilling life.
So it's more than just believing in something bigger than yourself. It's about actually living that belief through your actions.
Exactly. Imagine someone building their life on, let's say, rumors. What happens if those rumors turn out to be false? The whole thing crumbles. That's the kind of instability this chapter warns against. It's urging us, build your life on something unshakable.
And the consequences of not doing that,
Yeah.
those aren't subtle, are they?
Not at all. Verse 17 paints a very vivid picture. Those who reject faith, they're like someone who lights a fire for guidance, but then have that light ripped away, plunging them into darkness. It's a powerful metaphor for the emptiness that can come from choosing disbelief.
Like that feeling of realizing the path you're on leads to nowhere. It
Yeah.
makes you stop and ask yourself, wait, am I even headed in the right direction? Am I building my life on something real, something solid?
Precisely. And this leads us to another powerful aspect of Al-Baqarah: its use of stories. We hear the story of Adam, his creation, his fall from grace, and the lessons we can all learn from him. And then there's the covenant made with the children of Israel, their escape from Pharaoh, all the trials they faced.
It's amazing how these stories, even though they're thousands of years old, they still resonate today. Like this story of Adam, it's not just a religious story. It's about human nature, that potential for both good and bad, making mistakes and then seeking forgiveness.
Exactly. It reminds us that we can always seek guidance even when we mess up. We can ask for forgiveness. We can find our way back to righteousness. These stories, they're not just events from the past, they're like roadmaps for our own lives. They remind us that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves, this long, continuous story of humanity.
And then there's the story of the children of Israel. That one feels a bit like a cautionary tale.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that even after being saved from oppression from Pharaoh, they still went astray. Verse 51 talks about how they made a golden calf while Moses was gone, worshiping it as an idol. It just shows how easy it is for us as humans to lose our way, even after experiencing incredible blessings.
It's like they forgot who saved them, who freed them from slavery. Makes you think, how often do we forget the source of our own blessings? How easy is it to get distracted and lose our way?
That's it, exactly. It highlights this constant struggle within us, that pull between our better selves and our desires. But even with those mistakes, Al-Baqarah emphasizes something vital: Allah's mercy, his unlimited capacity to forgive.
So even when we make mistakes, there's always a chance to turn things around, to ask for forgiveness, and start fresh.
Always. And that is a really powerful message, isn't it? Our mistakes don't define us. What matters is that we're willing to learn, to grow, and to get back on the right path. And it's this constant chance to start over that makes Al-Baqarah so hopeful, even when it's dealing with tough issues, like when it talks about different religions.
That's what I find so interesting. It emphasizes complete submission to Allah, but it still recognizes that other faiths exist. It's like a call for tolerance and understanding, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And this is where the historical context is so important. Back when the Quran was revealed, there were all these different religious communities in Arabia. Al-Baqarah, in verses like 135, it's not saying all faiths are the same, but it highlights what they have in common: the belief in one God. It presents this as the path of Abraham. He submitted to God and rejected idol worship.
So it's kind of like saying, okay, we might do things differently, we might even follow different prophets, but let's focus on what unites us, the belief in one God. That feels so relevant today, with all the interfaith dialogues happening around the world.
Exactly. It's about building bridges, not walls. And this theme of unity, it goes beyond just faith. Al-Baqarah actually dives into the practical stuff too, how to live a devout life. Fasting during Ramadan, marriage, divorce, inheritance. It even talks about how to handle your money.
It's incredible how it seamlessly blends these spiritual principles with practical guidance for everyday life. It's like, all right, you want to live a righteous life, here's how you navigate these everyday situations. And speaking of which, what about the guidance on fasting?
Yeah, verses 183 to 187, they go into detail about fasting during Ramadan, really stressing the importance of self-discipline and getting closer to Allah.
Hmm,
But, and this is a big but, these verses also show how compassionate Islamic teachings are.
what do you mean?
Well, it's not just about following the rules blindly. It outlines specific exceptions for people who are sick, traveling, or going through other difficulties. It recognizes that not everyone is in the same boat. Islam is about meeting people where they are, not making things harder for them.
That makes sense. It's not about rigid adherence. It's about understanding the deeper meaning behind those rules. And speaking of principles, there's this fascinating contrast in the chapter between emphasizing charity and completely forbidding usury. Why pair those two together?
It gets to the core of what social responsibility means in Islam. Al-Baqarah puts generosity, helping those less fortunate, in direct opposition to the exploitation you see with usury. It's not just about avoiding harmful practices, it's about actively cultivating good ones.
So it's saying that being truly devout isn't just about what you do on your own, like praying or fasting. It's about how you treat the people around you, how you care for those in need.
Absolutely. And the Quran uses such powerful imagery to drive this point home. There's a verse, 261, that compares charity to a single grain of wheat that grows into 7 ears, each ear having 100 grains. It's such a beautiful way to show how even the smallest acts of generosity can multiply and have this ripple effect.
It reminds me of that saying, the smallest act of kindness is worth more than the grandest intention. It's not always about these huge gestures. It's about consistently trying to do good to make a positive impact.
Exactly. Al-Baqarah really stresses the importance of sincerity in everything we do.
Yeah.
True charity isn't about getting praise or recognition. It's about genuinely wanting to help others, to please Allah.
There's that theme of intention again. It feels like it keeps coming up throughout the chapter.
For sure. True faith isn't just about outward rituals. It's about what's going on in our hearts. Al-Baqarah reminds us that our connection with Allah should be based on sincerity, humility, a real desire to live a righteous life. And that leads us to the powerful message at the very heart of the chapter's conclusion.
So as we wrap up this exploration of Al-Baqarah, I'm really struck by how it keeps bringing us back to that relationship with Allah.
It's the bedrock, isn't it? Everything else builds upon that. And, Al-Baqarah ends by urging believers to make remembering Allah a regular practice, like a habit even, to find strength in prayer, to hold on to their faith, especially when things are tough.
It's like the chapter saying, look, life's going to throw you some curveballs, right?
Yeah.
You'll have moments of doubt, weakness, temptation. Even then, don't lose sight of that connection.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in those moments when you really feel the power of verse 286. It's incredibly comforting. It reminds us that Allah doesn't burden anyone with more than they can handle. He gets it. He understands our limits, our struggles, our human nature.
It's really reassuring,
Okay.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking we need to be perfect, but this verse, it feels like it takes the pressure off.
It does. It's about striving for good, of course, but doing it with kindness towards ourselves, recognizing that stumbling is just part of the journey. It's about seeking forgiveness, learning from those missteps, and just continuing to grow closer to Allah every step of the way.
Wow. What a journey through Al-Baqarah. We only scratched the surface, but even those glimpses showed us how much depth and wisdom is there.
It's a chapter that begs to be revisited, reflected upon. Every time you go back to it, you're bound to find new layers of meaning.
It really makes you wonder if this one chapter offers guidance on so many things, from the essence of faith to handling daily life. What other gems are waiting to be discovered in the rest of the Quran?
It's a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. This deep dive into Al-Baqarah, it's really just the start of a much bigger journey of discovery.
Absolutely. And on that note, we encourage you, our listeners, to start your own exploration of the Quran. Let its timeless wisdom be your guide, your challenge, your inspiration.
As you delve into its verses, may you find peace, understanding, and a deeper connection to the divine.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.